Welcome to the launching of our new book, The Eclectus Parrot. My name is Rob Marshall and lead author of this book together with Tale O'Brien. Tale is responsible for developing our unconventional methods for hand-rearing Eclectus parrots as companion birds, as well as developing the feeding regimes and daily routines for these birds in the home setting. There are 4 co-authors who have made significant contributions to the sections on natural history and aviculture. The main reason I wrote the book is that I've always had a passion about this incredible bird, both from its beauty but also because of its ability to use human language in context. And I can't get over how clever these birds are and also how perfectly suited they are as companion birds. So on to the launch of this book. As you can see, it's a big book. I'll just now flick through the book and just so you can get a feel of it and the depth of information in there. But it's written in a really easy way to read, although it's got a lot of dense information. It's very clear of what we say, but because of the extent of the information in this, it's really designed to be used as a reference book. So, for example, for someone who's having trouble with hand rearing or something like that, you'd go to the hand rearing section. An aviculturer who has an infertility problem, they'd go to the section on fertility. And for companion birds, I recommend that you start from the beginning of the companion bird section, read it like a novel, and read right through and continue reading into the section about diseases. So it may be a bit more technical, but if you can read that, you may get an overview of how complex the problems are that Eclectus parrots can sometimes, especially things like feather plucking behaviour and reproductive behavioural disorders. This is a really good section, the companion bird section. I'm very happy with this. Tale and I have worked hard to make sure that the information that we give here is very practical. It goes through the diet really, really well and explains in detail of how to prepare foods for the birds. And so I'm pretty sure that once you look at this book, owners of companion birds will be really, really excited about this book. Avian veterinarians as well will be really buoyed by the fact that in this book I'm describing those diseases that haven't really been explained fully in the veterinary context because they've been so complicated. We have identified the most notable diseases of Eclectus parrots that have been a real problem for avian vets to solve, and we've solved all of those problems and offer avian veterinarians means of treating these birds now, and hopefully they'll enjoy learning this and investigating these areas. But essentially, the back half of the book is directed at companion birds, and it will be really, really interesting and informative for the owners of this much loved bird. We are passionate about the Eclectus parrot. We're passionate about teaching the world how best to care for this parrot. And we're also passionate about passing on our knowledge to avian veterinarians who can then give the very, very best care to this bird when they're presented to them. We might just look through this section a little bit just to give you an overview of how informative and comprehensive this section is. So we're looking at this page, the key elements of care divided into 3 parts: diet and feeding regime, living conditions and daily routine. Now, the thing that separates the Eclectus parrots from other parrots is its specialised stomach function. It has what's called an extended intermediate zone. This part of the stomach hasn't been previously described before until I gave a paper to the AAV. This part of the stomach was once described as a hernia of the stomach. So that's how complicated and different this stomach was from other parrot species. Now, in saying that, although the Eclectus parrot has a really extended intermediate zone of the stomach, other parrot species have extended intermediate zones of the stomach. And the reason they have this is because of the function of this part of the stomach. This stomach functions to accelerate or pre-digest fruit pulp. The reason we undertook such a detailed investigation into the microscopic architecture of not only the stomach of the Eclectus parrot, but many other bird species of varying wild diet type categories was to unravel the complex pathogenesis of gastrointestinal dysmotility, which is a previously undescribed but common condition of Eclectus parrots and many other parrot species kept as companion birds. This is a really fantastic part of the book and one that I enjoyed writing because Tale was instrumental to formulating our strategy of care. It's a unique approach, and then we refined this. It's quite interesting because this strategy of care, which is directed towards Eclectus parrot, is equally applicable to other parrot species. Often in the consulting room, when I'm explaining the care of other parrot species, I refer to the book, and most people will buy the book because they haven't ever seen such a comprehensive and interesting way of caring for pet birds. This book is a beauty. I think it's really good, and it's directed towards those with Eclectus parrots as companion birds, but also it's broadly useful for anyone who has a pet parrot. There's big sections on behaviour in this book, sections on training, sections on diet, and also sections on the life history of the bird, which is very interesting, especially its unique reproductive behaviour, which is called polygynandrous reproductive behaviour. This means that both the male and the female are promiscuous, which is very interesting. We see this in the home setting, where the male bird will enjoy sex with any member of the family, and the female bird will lay eggs at every opportunity. So it's a big book. It contains 26 chapters and 9 sections. It has 741 pages. It's taken me and Tale 22 years to write this book. It's been a long project because there were areas that I just didn't understand. I wanted to get everything just right. It also took a long time to find those people with the knowledge that I could ask to fine-tune the writing of the book, especially in the area of aviculture. So in aviculture, there's sections on identifying the different subspecies and species. Well, now we know that the Eclectus parrot genus is divided into 4 species, and each of these have some subspecies. The importance of that chapter on identification of subspecies is relevant to those who want to breed Eclectus parrots for conservation purposes. It's also, this reference point is also important to those in the field, especially those in Indonesia, where the wild bird trade is still active and birds are being confiscated by the police and border controls. And when these confiscated birds are found, it's important that they're rehabilitated and relocated on their correct island of origin. Dr. Stuart Metz, who's sadly passed away, was instrumental in developing his rehabilitation centre on Seram. Med Halloway is also involved in conservation efforts in Sumba. I've relied on these first-hand experiences of these people to give me the best knowledge that I can use to write this book. I think those who keep Eclectus as companion birds and avian veterinarians would also be extremely interested in sections 1, 2 and 3. Section 2 is our field research in the Australian Eclectus parrots, which we spend a lot of time up there looking at the wild diet and collecting foods and looking at their foraging behaviour and just sitting down and looking at these remarkable birds around their nest tree. This is a really good section to read. I think you'll find that really, really interesting. And then section 3 is what we recommend as the captive diet. It goes into the theory of nutrition and digestibility, and also has a chapter written by Graham MacDonald of how to cultivate rainforest fruits in the backyard, which I think would be really, really useful. These section 1, 2 and 3 will also be of great interest to those with companion birds and avian veterinarians. I think most owners of Eclectus parrots are concerned about the future of the wild birds, various subspecies and species in the wild. And section 4 describes what the survival threats and current wild status of these various subspecies is at the moment. In this section, we propose a conservation plan for the Australian Eclectus. Section 5 is really directed solely to aviculture, but there are some good sections in there for avian veterinarians. But also for those in the clinical setting, as there are many photos in this chapter of Genetic Foundation of Breeding Success that show what an Eclectus parrot in perfect health looks like, and the subtle physical indications of failing health and or chronic disease. Of great interest to all Eclectus owners is the sudden enlargement of the testes of male Eclectus during the mating phase of reproduction. Of clinical relevance, we use radiographs to confirm the presence of male hypersexual behaviour in companion birds. This common reproductive behavioural disorder of companion Eclectus, as well as many other species of companion parrots, is explained in detail in chapter 26. The basis of our understanding of this condition is our investigations into the wild breeding behaviour of Eclectus parrots, as well as the knowledge accumulated as to the origin of reproductive failures of aviculture. The final section of the book looks at the notable diseases of Eclectus parrots. This is a very exciting part of the book for me because it represents 10 or more years of very intense studies into some of the more common conditions of Eclectus parrots which haven't been fully explained. This section finally explains these diseases from a clinical viewpoint, but also allows the pet bird owner to get a greater understanding that the diseases that Eclectus parrots get are often multifactorial and therefore difficult to control. We'll be looking at the nutritional disorders, vitamin A deficiency, vitamin D deficiency and calcium problems. These 3 nutritional disorders aren't always related to the fact that the diet is deficient in these nutrients, but that the diet is not adequate in the amount of vitamin A or D or calcium required for normal functioning of the body. It looks at these conditions from a different viewpoint, and I invite avian veterinarians and owners to read this chapter very carefully so they can understand how to firstly diagnose the disease and how to treat it, but most importantly how to prevent it. Chapter 22 looks at gastrointestinal motility disorders. Motility disorders have not been represented in the veterinary context at all before. Gastrointestinal motility disorders are a common cause of disease in human medicine, but for some reason this subject has been neglected in the veterinary profession. I think it's because it is quite a difficult concept to understand. I use contrast radiography to diagnose this disease. I don't have ultrasound or anything like that, but in the future I'd like the diagnosis of this disease to be more easily made based on new technology. But in this section we define gastromotility disorders and explain the pathogenesis of these diseases and how best to treat them. Chapter 23 is of interest to all Eclectus parrot owners and veterinarians alike. Health-based feather destruction. This book finally explains the pathogenesis or the development of this disease in Eclectus parrots, and more importantly presents methods of treatment and prevention. I think that this is a pivotal part of the book and one of very great interest to avian veterinarians and pet owners alike. The final part of the book looks at behavioural disorders. this part of the book was written largely by Tale. I transcribed it from her understandings. For a long time, I was very confused about behavioural disorders. I couldn't really understand them at all. The texts that I read and the references that I read were full of jargon and quite caused me to lose interest in trying to understand behaviour until Tale explained it to me very simply. You just have to think like a bird. You have to learn to think like a bird. And this section will teach avian veterinarians in a very simple form and pet bird owners the nature of behavioural disorders and how to manage them. We've separated the behavioural disorders into maladaptive behaviours and reproductive behavioural disorders. They're the two chapters that we've got in here. But initially, there's a section on bird behaviour theory. I think this section explains bird behaviour theory really well. I think from a naive person like myself, coming into the subject of behaviour and not really understanding much about it other than what you read in text, I thought I'd put together a theory which explains bird behaviour in a really, really interesting and practical way. And so I'm really proud of this chapter, firstly because Tali taught me how to analyse behaviour, and also she taught me how birds behave and how to look at them and to learn what they're saying and things like that. And this is a really, really, really good chapter which will have a wide appeal, not just to bird veterinarians or to pet bird owners, or owners of Eclectus parrots, but to pet bird owners widely. Reproductive behavioural disorders are also found in all parrot species, although the Eclectus parrot is most prone to these behavioural disorders because of its opportunistic polygynandrous breeding behaviour. All parrot species, or kept as companion birds, experience this type of behavioural disorders when they sexually bond to their owners. This chapter is really a really good chapter for all owners of pet birds. The final chapter is reproductive behavioural disorders, notably male hypersexual behaviour and a condition that we call ovarian hyperactivity. These two conditions haven't been fully explained in the veterinary context before, other than a paper that I gave to the AAV about 5 or 6 years ago, which described male hypersexual behaviour in Eclectus parrots. Since that time, we have developed a new understanding of male hypersexual behaviour and also a full understanding of the development of the consequences of ovarian hyperactivity. These two conditions are a common cause of many diseases of companion birds, and I encourage all avian veterinarians to understand the nature of these diseases and also pet bird owners to understand the multifactorial consequences of these conditions. The treatment and management of these diseases are explained fully in this chapter, but the focus on controlling these diseases is not to alter how we care or love our companion birds, but how we manage their daily behaviours and how we divert the energy, the pent-up energy they have away from sex into more meaningful pastimes, especially learning. So this is a really good chapter. I'm really pleased with this chapter because it finally explains these conditions and how to manage them. The reason that we include them in the notable disease section is that they haven't been fully explained before, and so that's the essence of this book, is to present information that can't be found anywhere else in the veterinary literature. So that's all I'd like to say about the book at the moment. Obviously, we're very excited to release it after such a long time, and I'd like to thank the Phoenix Landing Foundation for giving me the platform to promote this book. The book is available through distributors in the USA, UK and Australia. For information, just look at our webpage and you'll be able to find what you need there. and also I think Phoenix Landing will have it on their webpage as well. What I propose to do over the next few months is to present case reports on a new YouTube channel. I'm doing this as a means to explain visually how we diagnose and how we treat Eclectus parrots from a holistic viewpoint. So this will be of interest to pet bird owners and avian veterinarians. So I'll keep in touch with you about when these are available. Also, I'll be putting the 4-hour Zoom conference that we did with Phoenix Landing on a open YouTube channel, so everyone can look at that as well. So thank you very much, and hopefully you will enjoy the book, and we did enjoy it.